Okay, are we good now? We should be good now. Thank you for holding. Whoops. Honestly not sure how that happened. Echoing. Echoing. Please hold. Do you have my own stream open? Okay. I'm gonna assume it's fine. Okay. So, is game design YouTube useless? Yes, I will now end the stream. It was a good stream, guys. No, okay. First, what I was actually doing, what I was actually doing was announcements. Okay, we're getting in the habit of doing announcements at the beginning of the stream. So first of all, if you missed it last week, if you missed the announcement last week, we're doing a game jam in the Discord. It has already started. However, it is a fairly long game jam lasting 2 weeks. So you still have probably like 10 days or 11 days or 12 days or something. If you want to join, um, if you have an idea for an avoidance game that you want to make, or any something that is loosely about avoidance in some way. It's a very loose theme. So yeah, if you want to do that, you can join the Discord. Exclamation point Discord. Um, yeah, that's been fun to watch the progress so far that people have been posting. Uh, Progress on videos this week has been very bad. I have to say, unfortunately, um, because reasons related to my ongoing health problems that I'm trying to solve. I'll just say whenever I can prioritize trying to solve my health problems, that will make it much more possible for me to be consistently productive long term. I prioritize that over short term productivity things. That has been working for me for the past 2 years that I've been dealing with this, or that I've been trying to fix my bullshit. And yeah, so that's how it goes. Sometimes not super productive on any given week. Um, but yeah, still really excited about a fairly small video project that I will get out soon. TM. In the meantime, I did play a bunch of games this week since I wasn't feeling great. I just played a bunch of games this week. Um, the first one, and I will since you're not getting a video this week, I will give you some free game reviews. Okay. First of all, I got a code for this. This is the most important thing because I got a code for this. So here's my review of this. Loruna. This is an action platformer. This is a new action platformer inspired by like Castlevania, classicvania and Ghost and Goblins and things of that nature. I thought it was pretty good. It's definitely not quite as for me as I was hoping it was, but I would recommend it to a lot of people. Like, if you are interested, like, okay, I'll just say I'm not a big like classicvania guy. I'm not a big like I'd pick any action platformer, like pick anything that comes to mind as like a typical action platformer. Original Ninja Gaiden, any of that stuff. Like, I never, I was never like super into that stuff in general. However, I am very much into G&G. So I was hoping that this would be a little more G&G. I would say it gets more G&G as it goes on. And a lot of the boss fights I think are really good. But I feel like to make it really G&G, you kind of have to like, yeah. I mean, when you're going for like the 1 credit clear on the highest difficulty, it definitely has some of that going on, and I did enjoy it. But yeah, I would say if you like action platformers in general, really should play this. Like, this is a must play if you like action platformers in general. Metroidvania. That is not what it is. But yeah, if you like action platformers in general, and especially if you like action platformers like in general, and you like GNG, I feel like this is an easy recommendation. And if you like action platformers in general and are scared of GNG, but maybe are willing to try to get into something that's a little bit GNG like, this is an easy recommendation. Oh, maybe. But yeah, there's even for me as someone who this wasn't quite as much like up my alley as I was hoping, but I still enjoyed it. There were some boss fights that especially that were really cool, and some cool level design moments. There's this thing in Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. That's a little bit of a spoiler. There's a thing in Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, I'll just talk about it vaguely, where you have to be careful. You have to be more careful than you do in the rest of the game because of reasons that don't directly have to do with the enemies. I don't know. There's something like that in this game that I really enjoyed how that was pulled off. Anyway, he very kindly sent me 4 codes for this game. It comes out in 6 days, but I have 3 more codes that will work right now. And I think what I'm going to do is just like raffle them off or whatever. I'm going to give them to random people in the Discord who are interested. So again, join the Discord, and I will do that later today probably. If you're interested in this game, maybe get a code for free. It's only $10. It's only gonna be $10 though, so like you can also just buy it. It's a good game. So there's that. Should I talk about some other games that I played? I played Caitlin's new game, and I already talked about that enough in the Discord, I think. But I want to talk about it more. But yeah, it's it's what do you even call it? It's instructionless slop. It's PNG slop. It's okay, if you I already said this on Twitter, but if you liked Zero Player, first of all, okay, if you're into puzzle games in general and you haven't at least tried Zero Player, you have to try Zero Player. If you liked Zero Player, and also by Caitlin and crew, by the way, if you liked Zero Player and are willing to try something that is, in my opinion, significantly harder. Apparently, this is not a universal experience. Apparently, some people don't think it's harder at all. But I feel pretty comfortable saying that it's significantly harder. Then you should try. I feel like I have to put quotes around this for it to work. It's still not going to work. So, what? I thought the whole point of the quotes is that it would like believe me that that's what I wanted. Okay. I guess the point of the quotes is to make different words into one search term or something. Anyway, here's the game. You can play the game right now. All right, everyone got it? Really, really good game. One of the best games I've played this year, in my opinion. Anything else? I played Lorne's Lure. It's fine. I liked the way it ramped at the end. It did something at the end that was pretty cool. I don't know. For the most part, I felt like it couldn't really test its abilities, test the like player moveset very well. Like for most of the game, your moveset is just too strong. Let me search some Lorne's Lure. Anyone else played this? It's cool, just like, it's cool just like having a 3D platformer. It's cool just like having a 3D platformer that's not Mario. I guess like a first-person platformer is a better way of putting it. That's just something you don't see very often, and it's something that you don't see you don't see this much effort put into it that often. So yeah, I kind of value it in that way, and it's got some cool vibes. I like there's like a nice sense of place, even though you're in a fairly like abstract. It's not it wasn't clear to me, at least from the amount of story stuff that I read. I didn't engage with all of that, but from what I saw, it's not totally clear exactly where you are, if this place, how real this place is, things like that. But in spite of that, you know, you feel like you're in a place that's grounded and has connections to other places, and there's a whole. It feels like there's a world here, even though it's pretty sparse in terms of like actual world design. But yeah, the moveset. this guy's going about that all wrong. The moveset is a little bit like too powerful most of the time. Like you can kind of just do too much, and so it's like it's not very challenging most of the time. It fixes that a little bit toward the end and puts some time pressure on at some points, which is really helpful with that. But the other thing is just like, you know, the whole sense of place, world design being cool, the vibes being cool. To go along with that, I just felt like it would be really nice if it were a little bit more quote unquote immersive, for lack of a better word, gameplay wise, you know? Like gameplay wise, it's very trial and error based. Like it encourages you to just like jump a certain direction and see if there's a way that you can make it work, and then like reset, you know, or just like fall down and try again. And the checkpoints are like super frequent, so it's obviously, it knows that you're going to be doing that, you know? It's built around you resetting frequently like that, instead of like actually being cautious and like scouting around for the right path and like, you know, committing to a path only when you're fairly confident about it, you know? It goes back to what I was saying when I was talking about Cairn. In my Cairn review, I talked about how cool it is to route in that game. You know, this blind routing process. Like the first time you see a certain wall, you do this process of scouting it out by like zooming out and looking at it from this zoomed out view and like deciding, okay, I can probably climb this way, and then like maybe if I get up there and it looks bad, then I'll take a detour over here and I can probably make it work or something. And it's this very like incomplete routing process. Like you can't know for sure, right? You don't have all of the information, and you have to make some kind of routing decision without all the information, right? But here it's like you don't have enough information usually. You need some way of doing that Cairn type of thing of like zooming out. Like you could have like a robot that you send out to like a drone that you send out to like fly around and scout. You could imagine a version of this game with something like that like then once you have that, then it's like then easier for them to like punish you for actually falling rather than like having these super frequent checkpoints all the time and basically forcing trial and error. I don't know. I feel like there were ways to make that happen. There's more that would need to be done to make that feel fair and good. But my ideal version of the game, I feel like would have been more like that, more thoughtful and cautious and stuff like that. Bro, why you gotta out me like that? I got stuck in one spot and Misa was watching me and I didn't want her to watch me flail, so I pressed the hint button. And it actually didn't even help, by the way. It sent me backward. The hint system was broken and it sent me backwards. The hell, man. Lauren's lure is half intentional routing. The designer probably knows I can get here, which is an interesting angle. Yeah, I mean, you can figure everything out, but like sometimes yeah, I mean that's a fine way to characterize it. It's a fine way to characterize it. Especially just early on. Some indicators about how, because you can fall pretty far in this game, right? Some indicators about how far you can go in certain ways, like how far you can fall, how far your stamina is going to get you with the climb. Like I feel like I would have needed maybe a little bit more help in that kind of, you know, like more UI indicators of things like that. Anyway, it's a pretty cool game. If you like things like this, you will like it. Game's a lot more open. It's pretty linear, and that's another thing. I feel like there should have been at least some areas that were less linear if it were going to be more quote unquote immersive, for lack of a better word. I wish the picks were a little more tactile. Yeah, you're wishing it was Karen. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's things they could have done, but it's cool. What else did I play? Oh, I played. Anyone else play this yet? I talked about it. Yeah, I talked about it a little bit on the Discord, but you know, it's combo slop. It's combo slop, and you're a train. Which, you know, the fact that you're a train has some implications, right? On the gameplay, you know, it's very on rails. It's obviously very on rails because you're a train. It becomes a little less on rails. It becomes less literally on rails while still being figuratively basically as on rails. Yeah, it has a weeaboo aesthetic. I don't know. For all I know, this company is actually Japanese, but it felt like advanced weeaboo aesthetic to me. Could be wrong, but I thought okay. It's a very well made game for what it is. Okay, it's not my thing, which I expected because I don't love combo games, but it's just. There's clearly a lot of passion put into it. There's a lot of cute things, you know, just like cute ideas. It's not like a cutesy game, but yeah, there's like, it's just interesting little ideas, like fun. It's just you know, it's got the fun vibe to it in a way that you just don't really see anymore. You don't. This is outside of the budget range where you normally see a game these days. That you can say, oh yeah, they probably like had fun making this and were like excited about this idea, you know? So that's cool. But yeah, it is essentially Simon Says plus, or it's Simon Says with a little bit of, you know, it plays with it in interesting ways, similar to what I was saying about Candy Rangers. Have you read my 2025 Game of the Year post? I love how often I'm gonna be referencing that post forever because I just put so much effort into like explaining certain ideas in that post. But the fact that it's all like buried in this 2025 Game of the Year shit, it's gonna make it really goofy that I'm gonna be talking about that in like 2035. Anyway, I explained why Simon Says can actually be more interesting than people realize in that post. And yeah, but it's basically Simon Says plus doing all these, you know, Tony Hawk's tricks with your train every time you're in the air. And it has really clarified my feelings on Tony Hawk, and maybe why I never got into Tony Hawk's quite as much as a lot of people did. I really don't like this. There's all these different tricks and most of them are kind of the same. You know, there's like 8 different transformations of like the same trick based on which direction you press or whatever, you know, like in this, there's like the back 540 kick, and then there's the back 540 heel, and then there's the front 540 kick, and then there's the front 540 heel, and there's like that for like every type of trick. And then like, you just, if you want to score well, you have to do this like remembering game. It's like this memory test of like, can I remember which tricks? Okay, there's like different lengths of tricks, right? So if you have a tiny amount of time to do a trick, then you have like the short tricks. And then if you have a slightly longer amount of time, you have like the medium length tricks. And then if you have a really long time, you want to do one of the big tricks, right? And although there's also stuff with combos that changes which one you want to do. But anyway, depending on the situation, like you want to do different lengths of tricks. And then you just have to kind of have a running list in your head of which tricks in each list you've already done. And then you want to like I feel like when you get really good at these games, you just go through methodically the same order every time so that it's easier to remember which ones you haven't done yet, right? Because you like it, the tricks get quote unquote stale after you've done them a couple times. And so you don't want to keep doing the same ones over and over again within the same level. So it's like, this is supposed to be stylish, right? And like on the screen, it is stylish. And this is Ludo aesthetic dissonance is what this is, okay? Because the on the screen, and for anyone watching, it's like, whoa, that's so cool. Your train is, doing a kickflip or whatever. But in your head, when you're doing that, how it feels is like this, you're playing this memory game and you're like just pressing the buttons at the right time. And then you're like making sure you go through the checklist. It's like, dog, that's not style. That doesn't feel stylish. So that's one of my big problems with the game. But I played pretty far into it. I probably got halfway through it. It's pretty long. But yeah, if this is your jam, then you'll probably like it. If you like combo slop, you'll probably like it. Do I have a favorite combo system in games? I don't know. I feel like I just don't get into games with combo systems. But maybe I'm not thinking broadly enough. I do not know. The fun part of going fast in a 3D Sonic game but done well, maybe. Maybe. It's been too long since I played 3D Sonic game. Yellow paint. Yeah, I didn't think about that. But yeah, there's some good music. There's it's just a really well put together game. I was impressed. You just don't see it very often these days. Bigger. It's not a big budget game, but it's a bigger production that's really well put together. Crazy Taxi combo system. To be honest, I don't remember exactly how it works. It's been way too long since I played Crazy Taxi. But that might be a good answer. Okay. Surfer subways. Okay, they're Spanish. Yeah, Spanish people are crazy weeb vibes. Okay, what else did I play this week? Played some. I played. And I don't know if it'll come up. I played this game. Bro, why is it? Here we go. I recommend this game. I'm not gonna say anything about it, but I recommend just trying this game. Just because so if you're not familiar with the meme, this is a game inspired by this meme. Which is a good meme. But the game for a game that is inspired by a stupid Zoomer meme, right? Like it's just so much higher effort than you would think, and there's just lots of funny little things in it. I don't recommend like replaying it or getting good at it or whatever, but this is a very fun one time, whatever. Or I don't know, maybe if you're really bad at naming animals, then you can play it do a few tries to get better at it, but yeah, I recommend this game. What else? I played Linelith. How do we feel about Linelith? Because am I about to make people mad? Sure.
Hello.
Okay. It seems like I'm gonna make people mad. It's not that I'm saying that this game shouldn't exist, but You know, it's kind of the it's kind of a lot of games just give me that um what's it called again? Where's my egg? Just give me that where's my egg feeling, you know, where it's like, but but I already did this, you know, and it's like I already did this when it was The Witness, and I did it when it was some mobile game before The Witness as well. And it's not exactly the same, and it's really impressive. It does some good. It's very cleverly designed in certain ways. It all comes together in a really nice way. It Yeah, it's a well put together thing, but I just don't understand why we want this when we've played The Witness. It's not like it really is. I don't know. I just didn't see. I really just didn't see the appeal, I guess. Um, yeah, there was like one or two memorable moments in it, and it wasn't, you know, yeah, it didn't overstay its welcome. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have more to say about this, but I can't figure out what that more is right now. But yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. Negativity for no reason. Sorry. Thought I was gonna get to some kind of insight there, but whatever. That's line left. Yeah, just is it that it's too easy most of the time? Because like it just made me think about Patrick's Parabox as well. Because like, okay, I get why Jonathan Blow would hire this guy, right? Like I get why why he would hire him to work on puzzle design for Order of the Sinking Star. 100% I understand that. Like it's a very well designed game in the at the micro level, but like again, like I said with Where's My Egg, like we need an ideas guy at the like the very first step of the game design process needed to be different, and then everything else after that was fine. But the very first step is kind of the most important thing. It's like introductory puzzle game playing with format game. I guess. Is The Witness not good for that? I mean, even Portal is that. Even yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that was that. What else? Was there anything else before I get into the actual thing? I played the new. That is not what we wanted. Baroka and Angel dances. I forget what this. Are you serious? This just gets worse and worse. Okay. Okay. I played the new this game from the creator of many games that I like a lot. I didn't like it. People were talking about it on the Discord, uh, posting their scores. I just feel like it's so. Okay, well, I died immediately, but when I was playing it a few times in a row, I just felt like it was too easy to. It feels like once you get the basics into your head and are able to like know which arrow guy, which enemy arrow is which, and track that. I got to a point pretty quickly where I was able to track that, and then most of the time, like the vast majority of the time, there was like no threat and no challenge, and I was just kind of in the waiting room. It's like waiting room for this for the star to be far enough away that it's like I have an opening to grab it, and it's just like testing my patience to like um, see if I can always wait for it. I'm doing a horrible job playing and talking, but yeah. Like I would get to like 20 or something and then have like one scary moment where I had to dodge through like a tight spot. Yeah, it's just like you can look just a little bit ahead. You can just, if you're thinking just a little bit ahead and predicting the trajectories, you can just find the path a lot of the time. Way too often. You can just find the path that's, you know, not very scary, pretty easy to just stay away from danger on that path. I don't know. So it's like, and then every once in a while you have a scary moment like that, right? But those are too infrequent, and yeah, I don't know. It just feels very, very patience testing in the way that, like, you know, you're gonna be tempted to take a slightly more aggressive uh, route because you're just bored. That's how I felt about it. I know other people. I know other people. Yeah, this is not my actual record, by the way. I got like a 30 something, I think. But yeah, I didn't play it for very long. It didn't seem like my jam. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the patience testing thing, that's not necessarily bad, by the way. Like you might enjoy that patience testing thing. It's just something that I've experienced a lot in games. Okay. Anyway, done with the game reviews section of the stream. Let's talk about this. Actually, yeah, okay. Let me actually look at the. So this is, I was about to talk about this Broca. So Broca is the creator of Angel Game and all these other minimalist avoidance games that we've been talking about a lot recently here. Um, they wrote this post very recently, and I was actually going to talk about their old post called 10 Principles for Making Games, and I'll get there in a second. But it's 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 interesting to think about this because they talk about, there's lots of helpful stuff here and interesting thoughts about the basics of kind of making one of these games. I'm sure this is helpful if you're participating in the game jam that we're doing right now. But yeah, then they start talking about treaters, quote unquote treaters, rather than avoiders, treaters, which is, I guess, the subgenre where your score is determined not by time, but rather on how many quote unquote treats you pick up. So like in Minnow, you're this guy and you got to pick up the thing, and then the next one's going to spawn. Similar to what I was just playing. There's a star that's bouncing around, and when you get it, another one spawns, and you got to get the next one, and then your score is determined by how many of those you get, which they're saying is good for the design of avoiders because first of all, there's something that you're going for, and there's something that you're trying to avoid, and so that creates this tension where you can't just go anywhere on the screen to avoid it, and there's an incentive to go faster, and so you're incentivized to take a more difficult route at any given moment to get to the tree faster, which is true. But I think you can abstract that. You can abstract that kind of idea of um, well, I just think about it as dynamic difficulty. I know people think of dynamic difficulty as this more specific thing where the game is like tuning the difficulty based on how bad you are at the game. But like, you can think of it as consensual dynamic difficulty, right? You are opting in to increased levels of difficulty on a micro scale, like at moment to moment within a run. You're opting into increased levels of difficulty by choosing a more difficult route because that's going to be faster, because it's going to reward you in some way, or just in general, you are choosing to do something that is more difficult to get more score, to get more reward in a game. And yeah, post void, like Don says, Post void, like Don says, does that really well with the draining health plus the scoring system rewarding you on a few different axes at once. And it doesn't do this treats thing at all. But it manages to have the same kind of dynamic where it creates tension between the hazards, and it encourages you to get right in the middle of more threatening, get into more threatening situations, get into more threatening and therefore more interesting and challenging situations. And of course, Syncopause is the GOAT. Bro likes in general do a really good job of this with the way that they, like in 868 hack or back or whatever, you get the to get the points, you have to spawn a bunch of enemies, right? And so that is directly doing this type of thing, which I guess you could sort of call that a treater, but it's very different. And in Syncopause, it's like even more different. It's like in Syncopause, it feels so deeply tied into everything else. The way that the dynamic, quote unquote, dynamic difficulty works, like you can get more score by trading off, like spawning more treasure or transforming a treasure or whatever. Doing that is almost always going to be a trade-off with like killing something more easily, and surviving more easily. But it's all very complicated and messy and in the details of how the wands work. So I just think there's a much bigger space of what can encourage this kind of thing, or what can create this kind of tension than just picking up treats. That said, I think there is a lot of room for the treaters to be interesting. As another example, let me look at Angel Game for a second. I will type out the full title this time. I don't know if we're actually gonna be able to find it very easily. Oh, we actually get Don's record now when you type that. That's nice. So it's very hard to explain because it's so abstract, but actually there is dynamic difficulty happening here. And I think I explained this when I was talking about this game in my top 10 games of all time list or whatever. But there's this interesting thing that happens here where you generally want to be more to the left. Like if there are a lot of bullets on the screen, you would rather be more like not all the way to the left because you can't react. Not an unreactable range, but you would like to have access to somewhere like here. Like Don's staying on the right, but at any moment he could easily cut over into the middle of the screen, right? So he has access to the middle of the screen even though he's not hanging out there most of the time. So you want to have access to the kind of middle part of the screen as often as possible when there's a lot going on. So like there for example, it's going to be really hard to explain with a specific example, but like he could have tried to go up here. And in fact, that would have been bad because that bullet was moving too fast. But imagine this bullet had been moving a little less quickly. He sees this line and he takes this line. But if this bullet had been moving a little less quickly, he would have also had this line. But it actually would have been worse to take this line, because then you're not as far over to the left. It leaves you farther to the right, which means that you have to potentially get through more bullets. We're talking about bullets that haven't spawned yet at the time that you're making this decision. But they're relevant to this decision because if a certain difficult pattern of bullets spawns immediately after you make that decision, it could block you from getting. It could pressure you more toward the right side of the screen, and if you're already more to the left, it gives you more time. It gives you maybe one additional like swing back and forth amount of time to to wait for a route to open up through this new wave of bullets and then be ready to survive the next wave. I don't know if that makes sense, but like there are dynamic difficulty decisions where you pick a more difficult, you're encouraged to pick a more difficult route through the bullets because you want to be in a better position for the next wave rather than pushed all the way up against the right side. And so that's a way in which, in a very subtle kind of way that most people would never think about, this actually does have that same kind of force that's creating those interesting risk reward dynamics, without the treat concept, which also makes it more nice, minimalist, whatever. You know, if there were treats that you had to pick up in this game, I think that would make the game worse. Yeah. But yeah, so it's a little sad to see this. I'll probably make treaters exclusively from now on. But I agree with this, that there's more interesting experiments you could do with making them, blah, blah, blah. What if they actively avoided you? That is interesting. Lots of inspiration for the game jam in here. Or maybe you don't want to steal Toby's ideas. Okay. So that's that. But yeah, I also found when I was looking at this, I found Toby's old post 10 principles for making games, which I thought were mostly good and all at least thought provoking. Here's an interesting one. Yeah, racing games. They're scraper racing games. But yes, that's also a. I wonder how much interesting space there is in like bullet scraping or whatever, grazing, I guess is what people call it. It kind of feels like the type of thing that you just do to add that little extra, you know, for the people who can already survive too easily, you add that little extra. Ooh, you got to play on the edge now, which feels a little cheap to me somehow. But probably there's cool stuff that you can do with it that I'm just failing to imagine. I also believe in Toby. Always believe in Toby. Okay. What do I have to say about this? Don't watch video essays about game design. Game design YouTube infers design principles from finished products, resulting in backwards arguments that aren't useful to us as creators. Design with the process, not towards an end. One is alive, the other dead. I mean, I think this is true. When I look at game design YouTube broadly, this is true. I don't have any objections. First of all, I'm not good. I'm not a good enough game designer. I don't think of myself as a game designer, really. I have prototyped some games and certainly spent a good amount of time thinking about game design. However, I don't think of myself as a game designer. So take everything I'm going to say about this with a huge grain of salt. But yeah, when I watch video essays about game design in general, I don't like them. And I wanted to go back and look, you know, to give him the fairest possible judgment. I feel like we should do a relatively new one. But I haven't watched any Game Maker's Toolkit in a long time. I felt like the more that I learned about game design and more that I understood my taste in games, and not even just game design, just appreciating games, right? Which is really what I'm trying to do here. Like, for the most part, I'm trying to appreciate games more than I am trying to like think about game design. It's just that, you know, when you appreciate games, you naturally think about game design to some degree. But yeah, the more that I felt that I understood games and my own taste in games, the more that I felt like a lot of his videos were really misguided in a way that was really frustrating to me. But I was interested in this one. What makes a game feel mysterious? I'm afraid that one might be too vibes based though. I don't know. I thought we might just react to this. Would be an interesting one if I had played Blueprints. I thought we might just react to one of these and see how we feel about Game Maker's Toolkit in the big 2.6. But is there anything else I wanted to say about this in general first? And maybe other, if there are other like I don't really know what the game design video essay space looks like in 2026. Does anyone have suggestions of other people to or other videos to watch? I'm not really thinking of stuff like Joseph Anderson. You know, a lot of these game critics on YouTube are not really doing much design thinking. I would say, you know, they're talking about games a lot. They're saying a lot of words about games, but not a lot of it is really about game design, I feel like. I know there's like Sakurai. Maybe we could watch one of those. Oh yeah, Matthew Van Devender. And I don't really think of that as game design YouTube either, because he's a game designer. You know, he's not a you Van Devander. I don't know. I don't I don't know how you pronounce it. I guess you're not talking about the pronunciation. You're just talking about the spacing. Um, what was it? What was he saying? Yeah, if you have suggestions for other stuff to watch, we can do that. But we'll start with the GMTK. But is there anything else I wanted to say about this in general first? I just feel like this isn't really true in theory, right? I feel like this is very true in practice and not very true in theory. Um, I mean, design. The thing about design is alive, the other dead, right? I think that's fine. I think that's fine because, like, yeah, the way that you're designing is with a process, and the way that you uh, develop an idea is obviously very different than the way that I think about that when I'm critiquing a game after I play it or whatever. However, you have to understand games and have a lot of examples of games in your head to even know what's possible and to have ideas. Like I think to have good ideas, you have to understand what's been done. And yeah, so I think good game criticism or good game appreciation or whatever it is that I think I'm doing here can uh I think it's just obviously helpful if you have the right mindset about it, right? Yeah, I think it's just obviously helpful because where yeah, yeah, you get pointers on what you get pointers from someone who thinks a lot about games and what makes them good and what's interesting about them, and uh notices things that maybe you didn't notice if you tried these games, or wouldn't notice because these games aren't really for you or whatever, but then you can understand those concepts and bring them into your work in an interesting way. And yeah, I don't know, there's just, it just seems obvious to me that, to be honest, it seems obvious to me that what I'm doing here is useful. But you know, not just useful to players, which I hope it is also, but useful to designers as well. But yeah, this is not even an argument with Toby about this post, by the way, because this was made pretty clear. On the treaters concept, what about doubling down on the concept as negative space as the treat itself? Negative space as the treat itself. So like you want to be in the emptiest part of the, well, that's just okay. If I interpret that, you can interpret that multiple ways, right? Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but like maybe you mean like negative space like between particular things, you know, like if you have to cut in between a few bullets that are like moving, and then like three bullets that are close together create a triangle that you want to cut into and stay in there or something. Um, but you could also think of like just the time based thing as negative space being the treat. You know, you're getting every frame, you're getting your timer ticking up because not touching a bullet is the treat. Yeah, you wonder why this doesn't work in game design. I really feel like it's just because the people, I don't know. Like people don't understand games. A lot of people don't understand games very well. I think most people who understand games really well want to be game designers. And people who just like playing games and want to throw their opinions out there want to be YouTubers. I'm sure there's reasons why it's turned out that way, but yeah, I think things are getting better in this space. Not just, and that's not just me saying that I like what I'm doing. I feel like I've read and seen more stuff that's more thoughtful and understanding of what's possible in games in general and stuff like that recently. 10 game design lessons from 10 years of GMTK. I didn't see that one. Is it oh, here we go. Yeah, that seems like a good one. That's a great it's going to hit a bunch of different points.
20.
Let me respond to the rest of the comments first. Sakurai is interesting to bring up because his lessons stem from his actual years of working experience, so it seems counter to the point Toby makes here. Yeah, similar. That's similar to what I was saying about Matthew Van Devender or whatever his name is. Surely idealized game design YouTube is more highlighting the actual process an artist uses. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious what Game Maker's Toolkit is actually like. Because to me, Game Maker's Toolkit always seemed like it was awkwardly straddling the line between game criticism slash appreciation and game design advice. At least that's what I remember. It's been a long time. But yeah, those seem like very different things. Um but then again, like when I watched like Jonathan Blow lectures, like I watched like every Jonathan Blow lecture that I could find back when I was like after I played The Witness and stuff. And those really really interested me despite the fact that I had no intention of becoming a game designer. They were just interesting to me as a player, as someone who enjoys thinking about games and someone who likes games. So maybe there's just this inevitable crossover between games appreciation and game design advice or something. Or maybe those Jonathan Blow lectures were actually more game criticism or something than they were game design advice for the most part. I guess the exception would be that one with Draken where they, or no, that was Mark Ten Bosch, or maybe it's both of them. There's one with Mark Ten Bosch where he they give like rules for designing a game or whatever, designing a puzzle game. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to explore what's out here on YouTube in general, and in either of those spaces, really. I guess. Um, but yeah, maybe slightly more on the game design space. I'm curious what's out there. Maybe it's more that the essayists don't have a strong formal framework to analyze with. Like with music, you have music theory, for an example. Is there an equivalent with game design? There's not really an equivalent of music theory. Don't say game theory. That's different. Um, yeah, and I mean, people are trying to make that kind of thing, right? Like Celia Wagar or whatever her name is trying to make some kind of has a lot of writing that feels like that kind of thing, trying to make the theory of game design. You know, Matthew Matosis is trying to define all these concepts that he wants to apply generally to things. Um, I don't. and this is part of my okay. This is kind of what bothers me about like even Sakurai sometimes maybe, but like a lot of these channels, and it's like what Caitlin was saying about Matthew Van Deventer's thing. It's very prescriptive, right? It's like this is my opinion. This is how I design games, right? And then they just to justify it, they say things that are clearly just at bottom rooted in their opinions about what makes games good that are clearly not universal. Like there are very obvious ways to yeah, that one designing to reveal the nature of the universe. That's the Jonathan Blow one I was talking about. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. Like they're very prescriptive. They're not like a universal concept that we can use for criticism um and apply to anything, right? Which maybe that doesn't exist. Maybe games are just a broad enough possibility space. The game design space possibility space is broad enough that it doesn't make sense to have something that applies that have some concept that we can apply to everything in a way that makes sense. But it yeah it bothers me for some reason when I think it's just the way that people frame it as if it is universal when it's clearly not. I think it's fine to come up with these kind of rules, like the recent Matthew Matosis video, "Aesthetic Deception," is an example. Like I basically agree with what he's saying for a lot of kinds of games, for like standard kinds of games that most people are familiar with. But most of my favorite games of all time break this rule. They break it in a major way. Like, you know, Spy Party, depending on how you interpret it, maybe even like The Witness, Cinco Paws, um, Rain World, they all like these are like I think I just listed like 4 out of my 5 favorite games of all time, and they all have something like aesthetic deception like at the heart of them. And yeah, so it bothers me in that kind of way. It kind of feels like it's trying to steer the best game designers astray for the sake of average game designers, you know? And I always feel like the best game designers are the ones that I care about. So, you know, it's like if I think about what's going to make games better, what's going to make me feel like games are in a better place 10 years from now, it's taking the people who already understand how to make games really well and helping them understand it even that much more. It's helping the people who already get it even more, right? And what these general rules of game design always seem like they're doing to me is maybe confusing the people who already understand that this is not really true. Maybe not, because the people already understand it well enough that they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. But it's, you know, these rules are targeted more at like a designer who's working at Nintendo or Ubisoft or whatever, which I'm sure there are great designers there, you know? I'm sure there are really talented designers there, but like let's just say the average one who is like not trying to make something groundbreaking and new and really interesting. They're just trying to work within an established paradigm and whatever. It's like, um, is this what it is? 12 rules of animation? 12 principles of animation? There's this, yeah, yeah. So Disney in like the 1940s or something, 1930s, developed by Disney animators in the 1930s. And it's all of these rules that are probably helpful for being one part of the team, right? For being a single animator on a team of many animators making a movie in an established style, right? That's very helpful for that. But this spread, you know, long past the point where any of those people are working at Disney or maybe even alive. This has spread and become like a general rules about what is good in animation. People describe these people bring up these 12 principles as like what is good in animation in general, and that's just not true. Like there's prominent examples where people break like all of these rules and make great things, and in fact they're probably more interesting for having broken these rules, right? So, um, yeah, it just bothers me when people try to act like their rules are universal. Um, and even in the Matthew Matosis aesthetic deception example, he he doesn't, he does do a lot of caveating. He does a lot of like hedging and saying like this in general, and I think it seems to me that, he uses a lot of phrasing like that, which is better than nothing. But I do think that it makes it seem like the general vibe of the video is that he really does not like this thing, and he doesn't give exceptions. Like you should show exceptions, I think, when you're anyway. This is obviously a thing that frustrates me in general, if you can't tell. But what was I originally saying that got me onto this? Oh yeah, we were talking about the formal framework, the idea of a formal framework. I think that we don't have good language and good terminology to describe specific things, but I hesitate to agree with the idea that a quote unquote framework is the right way of thinking about things. It's just a little bit, it sounds a little bit too rigid, and it doesn't leave room for things that we have not imagined yet to be cool, yeah, I think it's important to not look at a new game that you see and play, or a new idea for a game that you might make, and just immediately think, does this fit into my framework of what is a good game? And instead, to use your intuition. Why does this seem interesting? Is there potentially something here to explore? You know, stuff like that. Like, what else can I bring in here to potentially make this work, even though it goes against what I would think of and what most people would think of as good gameplay? I think that's how you get to really interesting game design ideas, or game ideas, more so than whatever. People like the hedging phrases and caveats. I never liked those. Well, I think it's better than nothing. I would prefer a stronger, I would prefer less hedging and more just like counterexamples of where this doesn't work, right? Just clear examples of, this is not universal. It gives people, it would give people a clearer idea of how this concept applies to a lot of games, but it clearly doesn't apply to all games. And you should try to at least build people. You can't draw clear lines around like what types of games could potentially benefit from this and which ones can't, right? You just can't do that. So, but you can at least give people a little bit of an intuition of maybe where this doesn't apply, And I think giving clear counterexamples would be better. But barring that, it's at least good that he didn't say this is true 100% of the time. Because I've read a lot of people saying stuff like the 12 basic principles of animation, or like similar stuff for rules for game design, are always true, or like saying it as if it's universal. And I really don't. That really rubs me the wrong way, because people are going to read it as if it's universal and accept it as if it's universal, and then dismiss some of the best games of all time on that basis. But yeah, it depends. It of course depends on exactly what you mean by framework and all of that stuff. So yeah. Um, yeah, there are several different music theories developed by different musical traditions around the world. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about music theory to comment on whether that's what that means for understanding music or anything like that. Sorry. Matt's video on context sensitivity opens with him saying one of his favorite games is almost entirely context sensitive. Yeah, and I'm not complaining about the context sensitivity video. I'm complaining about the aesthetic deception video. I like Matthew Matosis though. Yeah, you could say that I'm a fan, and you would probably not be wrong. I'm not hating on the guy. Game design is just so deep that the majority of decisions that make a game feel a particular way are just, you cannot possibly cover them in a list like don't do X. Right. Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. It's really, it has to be intuitive. It has to be intuitive. And that's why that goes back to what I'm saying about like games appreciation. as someone who is more a gamer than a game developer or game designer, what I'm trying to do here is more about understanding games, helping people understand games, and I think that can be helpful for game designers, um, because yeah, the more you understand more different types of games and more ideas from different games, the better your intuitions are going to be for how to make all those little decisions, and for when something is a little bit wrong, for when something maybe you have to notice when something needs to be changed in your game in the first place. You have to have a feeling for when something is not quite right. And frameworks can't possibly reach down into all those little details, and these general, high level rules can't reach down into all these little details. And so yeah, when you're designing something that's new and interesting and original, like I just don't feel that these kind of general principles and frameworks are very helpful. I think you kind of have to just be the type of person who naturally understands game design well, and then stuff like my channel and other people who are appreciating games out here publicly can help you, ideally help you understand more games that you didn't already know about and stuff like that. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, it's more about having a singular language, like yeah, and this is actually part of what I'm going to be trying to do with the video that I'm getting out, that I will be getting the video that I'm trying to finish and get out soon, TM. Um Trying to define things a little bit more precisely about exploration games and stuff, because exploration is a notoriously vague and messy, muddy term that kind of lumps a bunch of different things together, and people never know what exactly uh, people are talking about when they talk about exploration. And so yeah, I'm all for like defining things so that we can talk about them more easily, and pointing at something, pointing at some concept to pin it down so that we can think about it, so that we can now think about it, like build on ideas about that concept, because we now have a shared vocabulary about what that is. I think there's a danger in trying to do that. I think a lot of times, things get defined in a really careless way just through culture over time, like, roguelike, roguelite, that's a whole mess of terms that kind of sucks. And even like puzzle game, that's a big messy term because of the way that the way that it's been defined kind of naturally over time. No one ever really chose. I don't know if anyone ever really chose to define puzzle games in the way that puzzle games have come to be defined. But yeah, I think it's worth thinking about these problems and trying to get precise about concepts that come up a lot. But yeah, I think about that as pretty different from frameworks. I find it more useful when someone just explains why they like or dislike aspects of a game instead of listing rules. Like the video of John playing and talking about games live is so cool to me. Yeah. I mean, that's so one thing is, I think this is kind of separate from whether giving rules is actually good in principle, like in theory. I think it's just so much easier to explain what you like, to figure out what you like and dislike about aspects of a game. And even if you don't pin down like the true, even if you don't fully understand, even if you don't get to the heart of it, like often people are talking about what they like or dislike about a game. Let's just say what they like. Often people try to talk about what they like about a game. They try to explain it, and it's clear that they aren't really getting to the heart of it. It's clear to me, at least. And maybe I'm just saying that because I've had that experience before, right? I've had moments where I thought that I understood why I liked a game, and then I kind of revisited later. This is mostly like years ago. I think I'm a lot better at it now. But years ago, I would think that I understood why I liked a game, but really I was just kind of parroting talking points that I've heard people use for other games, and I wasn't really digging into like my feelings about it. usually at this point for me, if I really dig into my feelings about a game, I can come up with a lot of things. I can come up with a lot of different, like, unique reasons about this game in particular that explain why I like it so much, or why I feel the way I feel about it, why I have kind of mixed feelings about it, or whatever. Um, but even if you don't get to that, even if you don't get to the heart of it like that, you just come up with you just find some little things that you like about it, even if they aren't the main thing. Like, that can be really interesting. Like, that can still be interesting because, and that can still, that's still valid, right? Even if it's quote unquote wrong in the sense of it's not the main thing that makes you love the game. It's still right in the sense of it's a true thing about the game that you're pointing out, and people probably haven't noticed it because they probably haven't thought about it that much. And yeah, it can help people to point it out and talk about it. Yeah, the hero's journey. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Okay. Anything else to say about that? Just freaking 12 principles bother me. All right, let's try to watch this video. I'm very curious how I feel about Game Maker's Toolkit in 2026.
2014, I uploaded the first video to a YouTube channel called Game Maker's Toolkit, a channel where I could tell you absolutely everything I know about game design. And now, 10 years, 200 videos, 8 game jams, and countless dungeon design flowcharts later, I can finally reveal the truth. I didn't really know anything about game design, because despite the fancy motion graphics, the lo-fi hip-hop soundtrack, and the commanding British accent, all things that help give the channel an air of authority and knowledge, I am, truthfully, no expert. But
strong opening. Strong opening.
I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand the craft and cleverness behind my very favourite hobby, and so every video was an opportunity for me to find out more through research and interviews and analysis, and then I could pop on YouTube and share what I've learned with all of you. And you know what? It worked. I've learned so much about the field of game design in this last decade, and so to mark this massive milestone, I want to share with you the 10 biggest lessons of them all. Basically, if I could boil down 50 hours worth of GMTK videos into a single episode, this is what I would make. So join me on a whistle-stop tour of all the lessons, learnings, revelations, and mistakes from the first 10 years of running this channel. I'm Mark Brown, and this is Game Maker's Toolkit. Lesson 1. One of my very first videos looked at 2 games, Far Cry 2 and Far Cry 4. Now, on the surface, these games are very similar. They're both about civil wars in fictional countries. They both have charismatic villains. They both have enemy camps and exotic animals. And they both have the words Far and Cry in their name. What are the chances? But the similarities end there, because when you actually pick up the controller and start playing, you'll realize that these games are completely different. One is a thrilling blockbuster action movie rollercoaster, and the other is literally the worst package holiday you've ever been on. And so, with this video, I learned one of the most fundamental game design lessons, that a game's experience is not driven by the plot, or by the graphics, or by the setting, but by the game mechanics. Far Cry 4 is fun because you have loads of ammo, you can track your enemies, and you can permanently wipe your foes off the map. And Far Cry 2 is harrowing because your weapons can jam, your Jeep can break down, you have to stave off bouts of malaria, and dying sends you all the way back to the last save station. So, if you want to understand why a game makes you feel a certain way, ask yourself, how do the mechanics contribute to the experience?
Okay, I mean, That's cool. That's fine. I mean, I haven't played Far Cry 2, or I haven't played any Far Cry game actually. But yeah, I guess it seems to me that people just are really bad at this. that's that's my frustration with, people talking about gameplay, whether it's from a designer or critic's point of view. It seems like people aren't very good at figuring out how they feel, even before you get to this question of how the mechanics contribute to the experience. It's like people uh people just aren't even good at knowing the way that they feel. People don't know the way that they feel. Like, yeah. Like people think that people think that games are cozy when they're about like doing precise input, like tensing your body up to do precise inputs and stuff. Um yeah. But he's saying he is pointing out that you need to think about the actual gameplay instead of the aesthetics, which is my complaint about the cozy game thing or whatever. And then yeah, once you think about that, yeah, it makes sense to ask how the mechanics contribute to the experience. Although I don't think I usually think about it this way. Okay, a couple more things to say about this actually. First of all, as someone is saying, this is not really a game design thing. This is, again, not really game design. It's more of appreciating games. But that does feed into game design in the way that I described it before. Like, you have to understand games and how they work and why they work, to have good intuitions for making games. So, but yeah, I don't know if I really think about this. How do the mechanics contribute to the experience? Like, that tends to be like the easy part for me, I think. Like, I think it's often more the format that, like, okay, like I just played this new Zero player, like I just played Synchromatica. No, maybe I should not use that example. Uh like Angel Game. I'm so bad at choosing examples that people will actually know. Um it's it's like I feel like I think more about the way that I'm thinking when I'm playing a game. It's like I'm noticing the thought patterns that I get into. I'm noticing what I'm struggling with. I'm noticing what I have to do and what that makes me think about and how it feels to think about that over and over again, or to think about that type of thing over and over again, right? Or get into a certain state. A game, it's like the game as a whole. It's like thinking about it at a mechanical level seems kind of wrong, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being nitpicky about this. But if I start by thinking, how do the mechanics contribute to the experience? It's like, um okay, you're the witness, you're drawing lines on here's the mechanic of the witness. You're drawing lines. Okay. How does that contribute to the experience? I have no idea, because it's not about that, right? I mean, I guess you could say that the mechanics of the witness are more like the puzzle rules, but then that feels a little messy. It's more like, how does it create that experience? But this is also just not the hard part to me. The hard part is like noticing subtle things about how you feel. And maybe that's just because I'm not as in touch with my feelings or something, but I look around and it seems like nobody does a good job of this. So I don't know. Anyway, this is okay. This is not like directly misleading or something. It's just kind of phrased weirdly to me.
Lesson 2. In 2018, I made a video that asked the question, are high scores and leaderboards still relevant in modern games, or are they just an antiquated relic of the arcade era? If you were hoping for a definitive answer one way or the other, you'd be disappointed, because the truth is, it depends. This mechanic makes sense in some games and doesn't work for others, and there are both pros and cons to including such a system in your game. And so with this video, I learned the lesson that there's no such thing as a right or wrong game mechanic. As per lesson 1, it totally depends on what sort of experience you want to
Android Cactus mentioned.
I've revisited this point a number of times. Are lives outdated game design? Should roguelikes save your progress between runs? Should a game have a fixed camera perspective? The answer is always the same. It depends on the type of game you're making. It's tempting to use a game mechanic because it's trendy, or to ignore a game mechanic entirely because it feels out of date. But the only way to judge a mechanic is to ask whether or not...
Yeah, I mean, this feels like pretty level 0 stuff, but I guess I don't have an objection to it. Should I just skip to the lessons? I'll just skip to the lessons. I mean, this is just not very dense with ideas here. Yeah, Salt Android Cactus is a fun game. Kind of twin stick shooter with some interesting twists. How much the mechanics make up the experience varies from game to game. Most of the fun of something like Mafia comes from the emergent social aspect, not the mechanics. Exactly, yeah. I just think the word mechanics is misleading a lot of the time, I think. He's wearing his nuance hat. Look, it's important to be nuanced, but yeah. When it comes to making a video game, you have to decide who this game is for and tune your mechanics appropriately. Oh, this just all seems so... Does anyone disagree with this? Does anyone come into this video with any other viewpoint than any of this crap? No, it's not. It's a little different from lesson 2, but yeah. 4.
Oh, and 2. Lesson 5.
Options and bonus content can be used to make a game appealing to those who are more hardcore than the target audience. Ew. Ew. I mean, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, man. It's just like, yeah. Here's what I've learned in 10 years. And I was thinking at the beginning of the video, I didn't want to say this, but like, actually making videos is not the way that you learn things about game design. The way that you learn is you study and you think and you write for your own sake, right? You do the writing part of the videos maybe, and you listen to what other people who are smarter than you and know more than you have to say, right? But like, maybe you even make a game, right? If you're actually thinking about game design, right? Like, yeah, I'm just thinking about like appreciating games more so because that's kind of my lane. But yeah, you make a game. Even for appreciating games, you make a game. And yeah. Yeah. It's just nothing. You're not saying it. Everyone knows this. And look, if I were going to say something interesting about this, it would be that bonus content is actually a bad way. First of all, you can generalize this so much more, right? You can make it appealing to those who are outside of the target audience, outside of the core audience. You could divide the audience into, here's the core audience, and then here are some other people that I would also like to target if I can, without sacrificing what I'm doing for the core audience, right? A wider audience in some way, and you can use options or bonus content or other methods, right? There are other methods that you can use to make a game more appealing to a wider audience while still having the same appeal for the target audience, the core target audience. But like, options and bonus content, there are like serious drawbacks to those ways of doing it. I mean, especially when you just say it that broadly. Like, I think if you're willing to really put in the effort to tune like 3 different difficulty levels and really do that, to put in the design work to make them all valid, to make them all equally good. I mean, the harder one is probably going to be good because it can let you do more interesting things, because difficulty, when you ask more of the player can make more interesting things happen. The game can be more interesting when it asks more of the player, right? So hard mode is probably going to always be the best one even if you put equal amount of effort into all of them, but you make each one as good as it can be for that difficulty level. That can be a good thing to do, I think. I don't have good examples in mind, but I think in theory that's something that designers should do more often if they're trying to sell a lot of copies. But bonus content, I mean, instead of thinking this is more like what I think of as like what should be like a backup plan, right? It's like if you really can't make this game work for a wide enough audience, you can go to this kind of stuff as like a backup plan. But the first thing that you should try to do is make some kind of dynamic difficulty. Use that kind of dynamic difficulty thing that I was just talking about with Angel Game and all of that. Obviously, Angel Game is not like the leading example you should have in your mind, but like think about how Syncopause is just as engaging. It's basically firing on all cylinders all the time in terms of like the density of problem solving that you're having to do, and the density of the gameplay density in that game is 100%. It's so far beyond what you would ever think was 100% if you haven't played Syncopause before, right? It's the most gameplay dense game ever, and that's a kind of meaningless phrase, so you can interpret it. Please interpret it in a way that makes it actually true. But you know it, and that is true of that game for such a wide range of skill levels. It's true when you are able to get like, 200 pontos, a 200 ponto PB. It's also true when you can get a 1000 ponto PB. It's also true when you can get a 3000 ponto PB, and it's true when you can get a 5000 ponto PB, because the gameplay changes. Your goals, the things that you were trying to do change as you get better at the game, and the way that they change makes it so that the gameplay stays dense. It asks more and more of you as you get better, and similar thing with Post Void and Angel Game and all of that stuff. And that is a way of making just one mode, and so it feels central, and it takes advantage of everything that all the work that you've done on the design of this game. It lets you use all of that instead of making this separate thing that's sectioned off over here for the hardcore audience and feels tacked on and usually doesn't have the same amount of effort put into it. Or like a difficulty option that's like not really carefully designed, Instead of that, it's a way of expanding. You should try your best to, without sacrificing what's good for the core audience, you should try to make it work for a wider audience within the same mode. And I think there are a lot of ways to do that people don't realize, but sometimes it's hard to do that, and you have to you would have to make sacrifices, and so you don't want to do that, and so you want to just appeal to people with other modes or whatever, and that's fine too. But I don't like this being like a big main tip or whatever. You want me to hop on Tick 80? Yeah, Blader was hating on this idea a couple days ago. And I won't say what he did. He got into some trouble there on Twitter, in the Twitter discourse. Okay. I'm just not trying to make games right now. I don't know if it's my calling to make games. I've made some prototypes, and I feel like I understand the basics of how games are made pretty well, but I don't know if it's a good use of my time to try to make games right now. Yeah, he's made games at this point. He had not when he started the channel, I think. Right, the Mario approach. Like I really enjoyed some of the late levels in Mario 3D World, for example. A lot of the Mario games are like this, but Mario 3D World especially, I think they did a really good job with the final levels. But it's like you have to sit through the whole game to get to that. You just don't want to do that. Like you're not doing a good job of convincing me to stick around. Like I have to trust someone's recommendation that it does get good 10 hours in, and then I have to sit through that. And I think the reason that this tends to work from a business point of view, this leaving leaving this little bonus mode for the hardcore player. The the more casual players get this whole nice game that's designed for them, and then the hardcore players get this little bonus thing just as a little, uh, you appease them with this little bonus mode. I think the reason that works is because the hardcore players are more likely to buy the game anyway, because hardcore people are the people who are really into video games and are probably just gonna buy a popular game that a lot of people are talking about no matter what. Um, I think that's becoming less true nowadays, though. People don't really seem to care about the newest Sony movie slop or whatever in my circles. I don't know. Kind of contradicts his lesson of knowing your audience. Great point. Great point. Okay. Lesson 5. More of this stuff? Is it what what how is this not what it's just so wild to me to imagine. I worked on this broad field. I worked in this broad field trying to understand it for 10 years. And I'm going to make a list of one thing per year. And I'm going to choose two things that are just this similar and this like I don't know, I guess he's just trying to make it so general that like it's unobjectionable. Maybe that's the idea. Maybe we should try a different video. Let's skip through these and see if they get more interesting. Designers should think of genres in the loosest possible terms. That's interesting. I think that's good. I mean, that's what I do. I think of genres in the loosest possible terms. I'm always talking about quote unquote action games, including like Tetris, I'm talking when I talk about action games, I'm talking about character action games, I'm talking about Crazy Taxi, I'm talking about Tetris, I'm talking about beat 'em ups, I'm talking about shmups, I'm talking about incredibly abstract stuff, I'm talking about like typing bullet hells and everything. So I think that is a good thing to do, just because, yeah, you don't want to get stuck in like a rut of like. First of all, thinking about quote unquote action games in that way that I just described helps you understand, helps you intuit that it actually is the same kind of set of thought processes that recur often in all of those genres. It's I broke down what is quote unquote sensory motor difficulty or gameplay, sensory motor based gameplay on the previous stream. So go watch that if you want to. But yeah, it's that kind of stuff. And so it helps you understand what is actually going on in your head when you play a game, which is a really that's really how you should be thinking about designing games, is based on understanding of what's going on in the player's head and what you want to happen in the player's head. Um, but yeah, it also helps you not get trapped in this like stupid what is a roguelike debating the definition of the term, or just like getting trapped in thinking about it based on like how it looks on the screen, right? Like a racing game and a rhythm game look pretty different, but they actually share a lot in common in terms of how you think about them, how you play them. And you don't you won't notice that if you're thinking too much about the presentation and not enough about the gameplay. So I think it's good for that reason. Probably for other reasons, I don't know. But I agree with that. Yeah. At that point, why even think of genres? Yeah, I mean, I don't think of genres very much, to be honest with you. Most of the games that I care about the most are kind of genre defying or genre defining, which maybe both at the same time. But I do think it's useful to think about types of thinking. Like this is how I was defining genres on the last stream. Just based on types of challenge that the game presents and things that you have to try to get better at. And there are categories that you can define there, right? Like you can define precision as a broad category of like, you have to do an input at a precise time, or aim precisely with the mouse. Um, and then like different types of reasoning, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, etc. And then like when it tests more psychological types of skills like patience or endurance, or different types of attention management. I think things like that are very helpful to think about and help you notice the core of a game, help you understand the core of a game, right? And notice the ways that core can actually be surprisingly similar across what people would normally think of as different genres. And yeah, it helps you. That's the type of thing that I was talking about with like having more precise terminology that helps us talk about things, in a way that we can understand each other and even understand ourselves. Like sometimes having terminology helps you get a handle on what something is. And for this particular thing, this different types of difficulty or different types of gameplay thing, I think it's really helpful to have that terminology, because these just are concepts that are happening when you play a game. These are kind of the fundamental ways that you have to engage with a game, and things that a game asks of you and things like that. And so yeah, it's really important to have a handle on that type of thing. Changing how I was thinking when playing Angel Game is what helped my record times jump much higher. Really happy to hear that. A lot of people have said something like that in response to things I've said about Angel Game. So yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, the fact that it feeds back not just into like understanding what's going on when you're playing a game, but it feeds back into actually helping you be good at a game too, helping you enjoy a game that you already were enjoying. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not I don't know how to describe what the thought that I just had. I don't know how to pin it down. I'm going to give up on that. A game idea is worthless until you've proven its value through a prototype. I mean, sure. You think it's complete horseshit? I mean, it's okay. It's the interesting thing about game ideas, and Michael Bro has talked about this. By the way, is Michael Bro game design YouTube? is Michael in the Forest game design YouTube? I highly recommend Michael in the Forest if you are a game designer or player of games, I guess. But yeah, a game idea. So I've talked a lot about how game ideas are extremely important, right? The high level, the very first idea that you have about a game, the highest level idea is extremely, extremely important. So obviously I don't think it's worthless in that sense. But in the sense of like, most likely, maybe this is another one of these things that is a helpful tip for the average game designer at the expense maybe of the best game designers, because as an average game designer, and even for me, someone who's thought about game ideas a lot but hasn't spent as much time prototyping and making games, I find that this is still the case for me, where I'll have interesting ideas, but I really have to explore them. I have to spend a lot of time messing with the idea and seeing how it doesn't quite work the way that I think it does, and sometimes it just doesn't work at all. And so that's what he's trying to get across, and I agree with that. But yeah, I think when you are a really experienced game designer, like, you can pretty much know when the idea is good. You feel like he's just talking about extremely shallow, bad ideas? I feel like there are ideas that are good, but you don't know how to make them work. They're good, but they're good, but you don't have that's not the full thing, right? Or like, it's not shallow. It's like an interesting idea, but it's not. Maybe this is just me being a bad game designer speaking, but it's a good idea. It's not shallow, but it doesn't work for some reason that's hard to foresee. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like I just said, I think it's I don't like how it's phrased now that I look now that I really think about it, because it's not true. It's just not true. Like I have argued in favor of the I have I've put forth the I've asserted that there are $1 million game ideas multiple times in the past. I firmly believe that there are $1 million game ideas that that if someone understood the worth of the idea, they would pay $1 million for it. And similarly, like for more niche stuff, there's ideas that are just as good and just, would make a 10 out of 10 masterpiece for that niche, even if that doesn't translate to sales. But yeah, I think yeah, I agree. This is not true, right? This is not a true statement. However, it's a helpful thing to say, similar to the principles that we were talking about and stuff. Some helpful thing for inexperienced designers to understand. And yeah, hopefully experienced designers who do just have great ideas understand that it's not actually true. Yeah, I don't know. It does rub me the wrong way that people will think this. Because yeah, I mean, the reason that I've been out here saying that game ideas are important, and the idea having an ideas guy in the truest, deepest sense is the most important thing for a game. The reason that I feel the need to say that is because everyone thinks something like this is true, probably because of they're watching Game Maker's Toolkit and stuff. But this is also just the general wisdom, and it's not really true. There's I'm wearing my nuance hat, and there's nuance, and this isn't covering the nuance. I don't know. That's enough of that. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying.
Playtesting should be used.
Frequent playtesting should be used to make sure your design is effectively producing the results you desire. Another one that seems to get more controversial. This is obviously the general wisdom. This is obviously what everyone believes, but it seems to get more controversial when you get to a high skill level. Jonathan Blow's always out here talking about how he's not a big believer in playtesting, and he thinks that you should be able to foresee, how things are going to work. But I will say, I think that's true for him right recently, because he's not pushing the boundaries of what is possible in video games. He's not doing things that haven't been done before. I think if you were doing what Caitlin is doing recently, for example, you can imagine that being a direction that he could have gone after The Witness, which would have been interesting. Doing these like these non-interactive puzzle where you have to simulate the game in your head, right? I think if he had gone in that direction, he would have to do a lot more playtesting. He'd have to lean on playtesting a lot more, because it's a type of design that he has less experience with. So I think it might just have to do with having a lot of experience in a specific area, or just doing something that's easy for you based on what you know. Yeah. Playtesting is game design. I mean, getting the feedback from playtesting and using it properly, using it effectively is game design. Um, that's a good analogy. The poem thing is a good analogy, actually. Are people playtesting their poems? And see, the thing about a poem is more comparable to zero player type stuff than it is to most games, which I would think is actually harder and requires more playtesting, right? I would think that the zero player type thing is so it's so open-ended. Like there's so much that the player could potentially be thinking about and getting misled by and getting confused by, and having so many different imaginable ways that the player could have a potentially bad experience, that you kind of have to play test to understand what is likely to happen that you didn't anticipate. But if I think about poems, right? That's the same thing. Like a reader could get sidetracked by some idea or be thinking about something that is totally irrelevant to what you want them to be thinking about, what you were, the reason why you made the poem, right? So, and people don't seem to care about that. So maybe we need to have more of the poet mindset and throw away this idea of playtesting. Yeah. I was kind of thinking along these lines after playing Synchromatic recently, but I don't know. Maybe the real insight here is that poets should be playtesting their poems. I don't know. It's interesting to think about though. Okay, last one. Always figure out for yourself if a game design lesson is true for you and for the type of games you want to make. Okay, I mean, fair enough. I just feel okay. This is me interacting with the video and trying to understand how I feel about it. and get to some kind of insight from there, right? The same way that I do for games, like I was saying before. I feel can't put my finger on it. It's like, I mean, I do feel like my time has been wasted. First of all, that's kind of a surface level thing. There's something deeper that I feel that's just like a gross, like, maybe it's just that I think everyone's time has been wasted. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, I am skeptical that this video is useful for anyone. Should we read the comments? Should we be brave? Should we be brave? I don't know if you guys can read this. You probably can. It's just a bunch of nothing, though. I don't even. It's just a bunch of nothing. Lesson 6 is probably one of the most important lessons I learned from this channel. Once you detach yourself from the idea that your game must be a specific way because it was made in a certain genre, it becomes easier to make your game more fun since you're not trying to meet impossible standards, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't doubt that some people need this stuff. I don't know. Should we try one more video? We should try to pick one that's like maybe going to be interesting to us. Is Zelda changed forever? What's the point of hard games anyway? Oh god. That's like me picking a topic that's interesting to me, but I feel like any topic that I've thought about I feel like any topic that I've thought about enough, I'm going to be annoyed by what he says about it. So it's like I have to find something that's interesting but I haven't thought about, which is probably not possible. Glittering generalities. Well said. Let's try learning about hard games.
Game design discourse is all about Hollow Knight Silksong, which, don't worry, I won't show any footage beyond Act 1. No spoilers here. But yeah, this is Team Cherry's much anticipated, much hyped sequel to 2017's incredible Hollow Knight. But pretty much the only thing people are talking about with this game is its rather brutal level of difficulty. For context, this is a Metroidvania about winding through an interwoven map looking for upgrades and secret passages. There's nothing too strenuous about that. But along the way, you'll have to go toe-to-toe with a huge cast of terrifying bosses, many of which will put your skills to the test in a punishing war of attrition. Now, the first Hollow Knight was pretty tough at times, but Silksong seems to turn the dial further, with even early and mid-game bosses like the bullying Last Judge at the end of Act 1, requiring dozens of failed attempts as you learn the patterns, safe spots, and phases you must go through in order to win. All of which has left some players feeling dejected and frustrated. Review site VGC gave the game 3 stars out of 5, praising almost every aspect, but trashing it for a level of difficulty that feels demotivating and sadistic. And so with...
Can we just... Does anyone like when there's a 2-minute intro that tells you what you already know? I mean, I guess some people don't already know the context. It just seems like it didn't need to be.
All this chatter
Sorry.
going on, I thought it might be interesting to talk about the design of difficulty in games through the lens of Silksong, to look at why game designers choose to implement a higher level of challenge, and crucially, how they should go about it.
To me, it's like, okay, so you said cozy video genre, and I kind of understand that, but also, like, I understand the appeal of these like 6-hour videos about games, you know, whatever. You like put it on in the background, you're not really paying attention to it, but it's comfy. Or maybe you just, you know, you're just putting it on and you are watching and you're just vegging out or whatever. But I don't know, to me, I would have thought that it would be better to have a long video for that instead of like a short video, but maybe people do want to just veg out for 12 minutes or whatever. I mean, people obviously want to swipe on short form videos, so that's even further in this direction. Whatever. I'm sorry. I'm not a. I need to think about these things. I need to think about what people want out of a YouTube video because I'm trying to make YouTube videos, and yeah, it's hard for me when I don't want the same things out of YouTube videos that most people want. Not that I want to like cater to a different, you know. What I want to do is very similar to what I was describing with game design and dynamic difficulty before, right? I want to make videos for a core audience. You could think of the people who already watch my streams as the core audience, right? And then I want to expand without compromising too much for that core audience, so that I want all of y'all to still care to watch the videos all the way through, right? So without compromising too much for y'all, I want to figure out I want to do what I can to make videos that other people, you know, a slightly more casual audience will also get something out of. So yeah, I have to think about these things. Yeah, maybe I need bonus content or options. Yo, that what's it called? Action button. That action button cyberpunk video had a lot of options, and that that seemed to do pretty well. And that's kind of interesting. Never mind. So we're getting way off on a tangent. Seemed like I would be good as a professor who teaches a class on games as a medium or writes books. Yes. I don't know if those classes exist. If they do, hit me up. Hit me up. But yeah, I would probably enjoy doing that. I mean, it's what I'm doing. It's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm just not getting paid for it.
I'm Mark Brown, and this is a GMTK Mini. Okay, so the first question is, why would a game designer choose to make their game hard in the first place? What can you gain by amping up the challenge? Well, I think there are 3 main reasons to do it. Number 1 is that the harder a challenge is, the more satisfying it feels to finally overcome it. If you breeze through a boss fight the first time you play it, it might barely even register as something that happened. But if you struggle against a boss for an hour, slowly improving your skills, your reflexes, and your knowledge with each failed attempt, and then you finally topple that monster, well, that moment of triumph is something you might never forget. That's the idea behind the Dark Souls series. Creator Hidetaka Miyazaki says, "I just want as many players as possible to experience the joy that comes from overcoming hard."
Historically, I have been kind of not a big fan of this argument. Because I'm not sure why exactly, but like the satisfaction that comes from overcoming a difficult challenge, like you can kind of get that anywhere, you know? But the thing of when he starts talking about more like it makes it more memorable when a game is hard, right? You're going to remember it if you struggle with something for a long time and then you eventually overcome it. That to me is a valid point and gets back to something I was saying recently about Ocarina of Time. Not the game that you would think about when the topic is difficulty, but when I was like 4 years old, I started playing Ocarina of Time, and I probably didn't finish it until I was like 6 or 7 years old, right? Because at that age, with that level of experience with games, it was really hard. It was really hard for me. I got stuck several times throughout the game, and I got stuck for like months or years or something. And you know, during that time that I was stuck, I just kind of, I don't know. I guess I thought about the game a lot when I wasn't playing it, and then when I was playing it, I just kind of wandered around aimlessly because I didn't even understand how to like formulate a plan for how to get unstuck. So I just kind of like I don't really remember clearly what I did, but the point is because I was stuck in the game for a long time, I ended up just wandering around the world a lot and just soaking in the vibes and soaking in the world design and spending a lot of time in this place. And that has made the game stick in my mind forever. I can never get Ocarina of Time out of my head in a way that I actually love, because I think they did that's the one part of the game that I really in hindsight, as an adult looking back, that's the one part that I think they did an unambiguously amazing job with, is, making the world, making the vibes, the atmosphere, all of that stuff. And so I think when the particular type of difficulty that you're having serves to make you engage more with the best parts of the game, it makes those best parts stick in your head better. When it makes you spend more time with them, with the best parts of the game, that is when this argument holds true for me. But sometimes difficulty makes me get stuck in a way where maybe I would like to be spending more time wandering around in the world like I did in Ocarina of Time as a kid. Imagine some game. Imagine whatever game. Maybe Silk Song, maybe Elden Ring or whatever. Like, I can imagine how in a game like that, I might want to look back and have those kind of deeply ingrained memories of wandering through the world and getting seeing all these places and getting them all into my head in that kind of way. But the type of difficulty is like, I'm looking at this boss and doing timings and pressing the roll button at the right time and looking at the boss's animations. And so what sticks in my head more than the world as a whole, which is what I really want, is like the boss animations and like the feeling of tensing up and doing the fights, right? So it's to me, this is basically true what he's saying, that this is a reason to make a game hard. This kind of like, to me, it's less about the satisfaction of overcoming the difficulty, and it's more about how the difficulty makes the game more memorable. But you have to be very careful, which I wish people would talk about this. You have to be very careful about what exactly it's making memorable, because the part of the game that it's making memorable, the experience that the difficulty is making more memorable, is not necessarily what you want to stick in the player's head the most. Hopefully that makes sense.
And
thinking about just skipping to the next section.
Plays into this. When I finally beat the last judge, my palms were sweaty, my heart was racing, my eyes were straining from not blinking, and I let out an embarrassing, involuntary noise like "ah" to mark my victory. You don't get that with an easy game. The second reason to amp up the difficulty is to tie in with the game's narrative.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if I also like, because he kind of said two different things there, right? He said this satisfaction thing. He mostly framed that first reason around the satisfaction thing, but he also kind of halfway said the making it more memorable thing at one point, and that is the part that to me makes sense. I'm not sure how much I care about the satisfaction thing. I mean, obviously it's cool sometimes for a game to be really satisfying. I like it, but it's very much not the point for me. It seems like it seems like it's a hook. It seems like the feeling of overcoming a difficult challenge is a hook that can, similar to like meta progression or like cookie clicker style, like, you know, numbers going up type of appeal. It's this kind of shallow thing that isn't really what I love about games deeply. It's not the thing that keeps me it's not the thing that makes me feel rewarded. You know, it's not the thing that makes me want to spend my life playing games. It's the thing that makes me want to play games right now. It's one of the things that motivates me to pick up a game and spend time playing it, and then maybe regret it afterwards if the game wasn't actually very good. You know what I'm saying? But of course, yeah, satisfaction does release a bunch of dopamine, and you're going to remember that. But I think that's like an all at once type of, yeah. I think for a game to really be memorable, it can't just be this one hit of dopamine. It has to be like, there has to be repetition. You have to come back to the game repeatedly, spend a lot of time. There has to be a low grade engagement with the game over a long period of time, similar to what I described with Ocarina of Time, for it to really be memorable, I think. I still haven't played Silk Song, by the way. I'm waiting for the DLCs. But anyway, what is he saying here?
Narrative or aesthetic goals, like,
sure. I mean, sure.
If a game tried to tell you that this kingdom is a place of misery and death, a no man's zone where hope goes to die, and then you play it and it's full of enemies who die in a single hit, well, that's going to be pretty dissonant. So if you want to tell a story about suffering and failure, then the gameplay should reflect that. That's how Celeste works. The game is...
This annoys me because no one comes up with a good story. This seems like the exact example of the backwards argument thing that Toby was saying in this post. Because no one sits down and says, I want to tell a story about suffering. Now, what gameplay would support that? And then they make a whole ass platformer or whatever, or a whole ass, like, you know, difficult game. Like, the people who are trying to tell a story primarily, for the people who are primarily motivated by trying to tell a story in their game. Okay, I guess maybe there's exceptions, like Pathologic maybe is kind of an exception. I haven't played it. I need to play it. I was thinking about, I almost started it yesterday, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? It seems backwards from how people actually do this if they're trying to make a story game. And yeah, that's also a good point, and I agree with that. I think some kind of quote unquote dissonance between like cute visuals and a really insanely hard game, like in Caramel Action or whatever, or like relaxing visuals and relaxing soundtrack in Dust Force, stuff like that can be a good counterbalancing force, you know? Lisa the Painful, yeah, I would believe it if that's an example of actually where the designer actually thought through it in this order. But yeah, I think the vast majority of the time, it's not like you're making the game hard so that you can have tell a story about pain or whatever. It's like you're telling a story about pain because the game is hard and you want it to have a story and you want it to fit. So, yeah. But yeah, I think consonance or harmony between the gameplay and the other elements of the game is extremely important. I think it's important, you know, this is the kind of level one ludonarrative dissonance discussion that I think everyone understands at this point. Everyone who's in the loop about game design understands at this point. It doesn't really need to be said, but there are some subtler forms of dissonance that I will hopefully be talking about soon. TM. That yeah, I think about this kind of stuff a lot.
About hero Madeline stubbornly persisting through hardship and setbacks as she climbs a legendarily high mountain. And so the player must also stubbornly persist through hardship and, well, you get the idea. Silksong plays into this too. The game's world, Farloom, is a withered, haunted land. There is death everywhere. Other characters are seen failing on their pilgrimage to the Citadel. Main character Hornet must grow in strength and wisdom to succeed, and so must you. And the final reason for
also, I do agree that Celeste is not that hard, but like it's super relative. I think people underestimate how hard a game can be for a truly inexperienced player. Like, yeah, the first time you picked up a game that was like Celeste, it was hard for you, probably, you know? Unless you just played a ton of other games and other genres and whatever. But like, yeah, if you were give Celeste to a 10-year-old who hasn't played games before and it's a hard game. And yeah, I think people underestimate how hard it is, even for someone who just doesn't habitually play video games all the time. Yeah. It's a little upsetting, actually. It's frustrating as someone who does play video games all the time that you get as good as you do, but you inevitably get very good at games relative to the uninitiated when you play a lot of games all the time for years or decades. And it's frustrating that that's the case, because I mean, it's good because when you get better at games, then the games can ask more of you and do more interesting things with your skills. You know, your skills are the base unit of art. You know, the art is being built out of your skills. You know, it's your skills are what the game is made out of. But it's frustrating then that the games that I enjoy the most, I can't necessarily recommend to very many people. But yeah, it's important. I think it's important to keep in mind. It's important to know just how big the gap is between an experienced gamer, like what their impression of difficulty, and an inexperienced gamer or just like a kid.
Increasing a game's difficulty is to ensure that the player approaches the game in a certain way. Take the game Fury, a game about being patient and observant as you dodge and parry every incoming attack, before exploiting a rare opening to deal some damage. The game is designed as a brutal back-and-forth ballet of defense and offense. But if you could also just run up to the boss, dodge a few simple attacks, and then wail on it until it dies, well, you wouldn't have to do any of that stuff I just said, and the game would be pretty dull. So, in Fury, difficulty acts like a teacher, punishing you if you play it wrong, rewarding you if you play it right. Where easy games let you get away with simple and repetitive strategies, hard games require you to use every mechanic, every system, every tool, and every inch of the level design. And Silksong does play into this also. You'll need to learn every boss's patterns, make use of every charm and tool, and understand Hornet's moveset on a deep molecular level. So I think those are the three.
So this is more getting to the central reason why difficulty is actually good, which yeah goes back to what Lanza just said. Mark got it right when he said difficulty clarifies design. Yeah, like if a game is easy, usually it's complicated. And this particular argument isn't something that I have really dug into that much myself. So I probably don't have a really clear, crisp way of putting it, because I feel like I mostly agree with what's kind of in the air right nowadays, like because of people like Mark. Like I think that difficulty clarifies design. I think that is basically true. And I think what this Mark, the Game Maker's Toolkit, says says here is also basically true. I think it's kind of a weird way of putting it. I think, yeah, I don't know if he probably is hesitant to say it as strongly as I would say it, or to uh he's hesitant to say anything that makes it sound like difficult games are better, right? Um because of his audience and stuff like that, but to me difficult games are better. And yeah, I say this all the time, but like the game has to work in your brain. A game is trying to make something interesting happen in your brain. So of course, it's kind of unobjectionable that you can't really argue it. Like games that ask more of you can do more interesting things. The ceiling on what can be done with a game that asks more of you, so is more difficult, is just higher. Or at least there's way more, there's a much larger possibility space. Maybe there are these ultra rare ideas that are super duper interesting, but despite not asking much of you. But I think that for a game to be really interesting, it has to expect you. Well, if it wants to be interesting for you, then it has to also expect you to put up with some kind of difficulty. Now, that might be like if you think about Vespers, which I talked about recently. It's like a walking simulator where you take one step every day for like 3 months or something. That's not difficult in a completionist sense, but if you want to appreciate it, I think it does kind of ask a lot of you, or at least it asks something of you. I felt like I was challenged, right? I was challenged to appreciate it. And this is something that Matthew Matosis talked about in his new Ghouls and Ghosts video. Like there's appreciation difficulty that's different from like completion difficulty. And that gets back to like what we think of as difficulty in like a novel, right? Like what makes a Thomas Pynchon novel difficult? It's not getting through the words. It's not looking through the pages and getting to the last page. It's understanding what's interesting about it. And yeah, I think for a game to, yeah, I think when you think about difficulty in that kind of way, it's just obvious that more difficulty means that more can be done. More can be done. It can be more interesting. And to me, that's the more direct way of getting at what I'm talking about. But there's also this other angle, which is more related to the difficulty clarifies design thing, which is like games have different like the difficulty can break down into multiple kind of components, right? And often when I play a game at this point, as a really experienced player in like most genres, often I can see that if I can notice that if I were less experienced with like, if I were less good at just the pure execution, then I would have to actually think a lot more. And I would have to adapt a lot more if I weren't as good at like figuring out a reasonable route. Or like if I didn't know how to, in a shmup, like if I didn't know how to like stream bullets slowly across the screen and like, you know, do this slow like tapping, dodging across the screen thing that you do in like every shmup once you know what you're doing, I would have to do more improvisational, interesting dodging, and the game would actually be more fun for me, right? And so difficulty clarifies design is a good way of putting it, so that like, you know, you can't just get into that situation. When you crank the difficulty up to what feels like the proper level, or at least what is the proper level for a particular player, it forces you to actually engage with all of the component parts of that difficulty and in the right balance, right? It doesn't just degenerate into like, oh, I can first try all of this just with like execution skill instead of like actually using my brain or whatever. Ain't you a Kentucky Route Zero fan? Checkmate, sir. I think that totally goes with what I was just saying about Vespers, though. Like, there's difficulty in appreciating Kentucky Route Zero. but also, yeah, yeah, I think there's difficulty in appreciating it. And but yeah, maybe it's not universally true. Maybe some things are, some stories especially are just easy to understand and um, poignant or whatever. Um, they capture they deliver a certain experience despite being very easy to engage with. That's different because it's not gameplay. Also, um, yeah, I guess I need to clarify my feelings on this a little bit because like the figuring out what's going on thing I would categorize as gameplay, or at least it's like it's on the line between what is gameplay and what is like something that happens in all art forms, right? Because when you look at a painting, you're often like doing this what is going on type of thing, which is similar to the initial like learning phase of a video game. But that's not the whole thing. Like this is, I guess what I'm saying is games, the central thing that gameplay does as an art form, gameplay as an art form, what it does is it's all about this like challenge and asking you to actually learn how to do things, figure out how to do things and to do them well. And so it's all about this kind of thinking and figuring things out and stuff like that. Whereas when you read a book, that that figuring things out layer is there, but the central thing might not be about that, and often is not about that. And I still think that difficulty helps. You can write more beautiful prose when you allow yourself to use a wider vocabulary and things like that. And when you expect your readers to be able to follow your complex syntax, sentence structures and things like that, you can write more complex sentences, which just opens up more room for more beauty, right? Similar to what I said about like complex puzzle design for like Sneckbird and things like that, Theta game. Yeah, seems like there's just a lot of reasons why difficulty is good, and maybe I should try to clarify those and separate them out uh, very cleanly because it doesn't seem like anyone has really done that before. That'd be an interesting topic. I'm gonna write that down. Staring into the sun for fun. Hey, we got to some interesting things. I think I've said some interesting things. Can I think of a game that was made better by being made easier? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think for gameplay, difficulty is much more central. But actually, I did write about. I was writing something about this, and then I had so many other ideas for better videos that I kind of set it aside for now. Um, yeah, I just have so many ideas for videos, and I wish I could make them more effective. We'll get there. Anyway, yeah, I was writing something about why difficulty is central to video games, even though it's not central to other art forms, or it's at least more central. It's more mandatory or something like that. Um, but yeah, I do think that it makes it easier. Difficulty makes it easier to do something interesting in other art forms as well. And so there's different reasons here, but yeah, like I reread The Hobbit recently, right? I reread The Hobbit as a 30-year-old or whatever, and I thought it was great. Like it was I thought it held up. I enjoyed it a lot. Similarly, like I could watch Toy Story, right? I could watch Toy Story as an adult and enjoy it all the way through in a way that is just not true for me with a video game that is designed for kids or inexperienced players. Um, and yeah, it's I'll probably talk about this. I'll probably talk about this more in the future, but hopefully what I just said gives you a kind of an idea. No, this was like 2 years ago. Recently to me is like 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or something. I think that'll be it for the stream. The difficulty of not falling asleep while playing Kentucky Route Zero. He didn't get it. Can't really comment on a Rubik's Cube because I haven't really gotten into Rubik's Cubes. I don't think it's really my thing. And there's also multiple games that you play with that, right? Like it's a toy. Well, I guess it's a game. I guess it's a game. But then like speed running it is very different from like learning how to do it, right? Like a lot of games have like the puzzle aspect, like figuring out how you even solve it at all, and then it becomes a speed run to be able to solve it for the general case as quickly as possible or whatever. So that's kind of messy to talk about. No, I'm saying that I don't really enjoy easy games. Like it's hard for me to enjoy a game when it's too easy. And this is actually something that so I will say this again because it's the end of the stream. I played this game recently. I got a review code for this, and I think it's a pretty good game. I think it's a good game even. Um, I recommend it to most people who like action platformers. Um, it's too easy for me. For most of the game, at least, it's too easy. Um, I still enjoyed parts of it, especially like the later parts where it feels more like G&G than Castlevania. But yeah, a lot of it I was able to do that kind of thing like I was just describing, where I can kind of avoid having to engage with the certain aspects of the game because I'm too good at one particular skill, right? I'm good at one skill, and that kind of makes another skill not necessary, right? And that kind of feels bad and makes the game less fun because I'm not engaged on all fronts. I can get through the game without. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with difficulty, and I should probably talk about it at length, but I'm not going to try to say something definitive on it right now, or even remotely definitive, because it's a very complicated subject that I feel like a lot needs to be said about. Anyway, the reason I said this again is because if you like action platformers, I do highly recommend this game. And especially if you, yeah. Yeah, okay. Turtle was right. Um, um, if you want a kind of classic Vania that has little bits of G&G, it can kind of be an intro to G&G if you're afraid of G&G, or if you like both G&G and like other classic action platformers in general. I recommend this game, and I have 3 keys to give away. I have 3 early access keys to give away. So if you're interested in this game, join the Discord, and I will do that later today. Or maybe I'll wait because a lot of people watch these videos after the fact. So maybe I'll do it like tomorrow or something. But yeah, we'll do a little keys giveaway in Discord later. Did we answer this question? Did we decide what we think about this? Could be prizes to jam games. Yeah, I don't want. First of all, I want to give them away now so that people can have early access to this game because that's fun. Second of all, I don't necessarily want to pick winners for the jam. I'm gonna be playing them on stream, and that'll be cool. But I don't think there's a good way to, because I don't want it to just be like make a game for me. Make a game that you think I'm gonna like. I want people to make a game that they think is going to be good for someone, you know? Uh, and I also don't want it to be like a popularity contest because then it's like the opposite. It's like a game that's good for no one, but kind of okay for everyone. Is the answer just never listen to YouTubers? I mean, I don't know. Look, I can't speak at length about Kentucky Route Zero in this context. And honestly, I'm probably not going to do a good job defending Kentucky Route Zero um, right now in general because it's been 6 years since I played it. But I will say I don't trust gamers' opinions about writing. I don't know you. Maybe you are maybe you're a great writer or you uh understand writing, but uh yeah, to me Kentucky Route Zero is a standout piece of writing in games, in video games. Like top 5 probably. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know what to tell you. So if you strongly disagree with that and it upsets you that I that I think that, then maybe the answer for you is to never listen to YouTubers. I don't know. I will just say, look, since I'm already giving my writing hot takes, I will say something even more controversial, which is that I think The Last of Us Part Two is a well written video game. I kind of I feel like I can't exactly say it like that. I have to uh, caveat that a little bit. It's obviously very flawed in some ways, but in terms of the actual uh, experience created by the writing in that game, I think it does really well compared to the vast majority of games. So that's that's what it is. If you don't want to listen to my takes on writing, that's fine. I don't even talk about writing here that often, so whatever. I do talk about writing in the books channel in the Discord sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. I think I understand what makes for good writing. I think I similarly to how I understand my experience of games and I'm good at examining how a game makes me feel and think and figuring out what that means about how the game works and how it works for me. I look around and I see other people not being very good at that. I feel like it's the same skill for appreciating other art forms for the most part. It's largely the same skill that helps me appreciate novels and poems and all forms of writing outside of games. And I also look around criticism of those forms and discourse about those forms and feel like nobody understands them except me. So I don't know what to tell you. All right, that will be the stream. Join the Discord if you want Laruna, or if you want to join the game jam. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye bye.